When people ask me, where do I think interest rates are going, I'm often prone to answer with a question, which is, why do you think that my opinion even possibly matters? There are so many people so interested in interest rates, short-term and long-term, that any view that I have is largely superfluous. Now, you know that short and long-term interest rates are low, historically. You know that short-term rates are controlled by central banks in our country by the U.S. Federal Reserve, and overseas outside of America by central banks there, wherever. Long-term rates used to not be impacted at all by central banks. They were free market set. Since the beginning of quantitative easing programs, central banks have tried to impact long rates to push them down. The reality of all of this is that it's all somewhat artificial and will remain artificial for some good period of time, because the central banks are, in my opinion, more reactors than they are causers, and they react to all the same stuff that all the rest of us do. That is, they're all very concerned about things like the coronavirus and elections. They don't say they're concerned about elections, but they are, and concerned about things like whatever Congress may or may not do and what have you. So I can't tell you what will happen next month or next quarter, or necessarily even next year. I will tell you that in the short term, there's not a lot of reason for long rates to go up. The central banks continue to push to try to keep them down. They believe that's good. I believe that's stupid. But I've never really believed central banks were very capable in the first place. The fact is that long rates are a little higher now than they were at their low point in the summer for this year, but still well below where they started the year at. And as we look into the future, eventually we can say, but we don't know when eventually is, that long rates will be much higher, and that there will be a spread between short-term and long-term interest rates eventually, which will at least fully compensate for whatever future world of inflation we have. That is, if this is short-term rates and this is long-term rates, time goes by, longer term, longer rates go up higher and higher, that spread ought to fully compensate for whatever inflation goes on, to compensate lenders for the inflation that they suffer during the time period in which they lend their money out. That hasn't really been true recently, and that will return eventually. Eventually, you should look for long rates to go up from here fairly markedly, at least several percent. But there's no pressure in the short term to do that anyone can see, and I wouldn't expect it anytime any too soon. And what they'll be in December 31st or what they'll be on March 31st, I don't have a clue. So if I were you, I wouldn't worry about that too much, because so many other people are worrying about it. And as they worry about it, they're kind of doing it for you. And just assume that this is not a world where short or long rates move a lot, and accept it for what it is and move on. Subscribe to the Fisher Investment YouTube channel if you like what you've seen. Click the bell to be notified as soon as we publish new videos.